And especially thank you for coming in today morning with all the traffic woes. How many of you actually planned this ahead of time? You did. Great. So yeah, planning works for all of us compared to other people who are stuck in the traffic. So thank you again for that. So let's start. Today's topic is about how do you shift focus from valuation to value creation. In fact, do we even want to shift that focus? So let's talk about that, and I'm hoping that this would help you make some decisions about your organizations, which direction that you want to take this to. We will have a round of question answers towards the end, so keep your questions stacked up. So let's start. This here is a screenshot of an article that I took from the Business Standard online. And it talks about another venture capital fund available, and that's what, 100 crores, and for 30 startups. Now, what's interesting to me is this next one. Immediately, just about a week before, on the same platform, there was another article which speaks about funding winter. Same place, same time zone, and we've got two different contradictions, and that's why I love this so much. At one level, we've got new funds coming into the market, and at the other level, we are talking about funding winters. Now, before I move ahead, I would like to know from here, show of hands, okay? How many of you are hoping that you are like one of those 30 companies who get invested? Hands up. Higher, higher, be confident. Yes, yes, great, thank you. And how many of you are actually facing funding winter, or are you worried about the funding winter? 1, 2, hands up, guys, let me see that, yes. And you know what? The reality is that both these realities exist together today. And one of the reasons that I have seen this happening is, especially for organizations who are going out and looking for funding, one of the reasons for not getting that funding is because they have failed to either create that value, or they have failed to make that value visible to your investors, to your customers, to your all your stakeholders. And that's why, for us, today's discussion becomes relevant, right? How do you create that value? How do you, once you've created, how do you make that value visible to all the people who are going to be looking into your business? So let's talk about that. But before we start talking about valuation and whether we should go for valuation or value creation, I would like to spend a minute to talk about what is valuation and what is value creation. So here, today, it is by building a solid business, whose fundamentals are based on the people, the product, the profitability as such, right? It is based on the actions that you have to take today, or the actions which are meant for your organization. You have to use this route to be able to reach to the summit. So value creation for me is something that you have to do today. Valuation is the result of the value creation that you are investing your time and efforts into. So that for me is a difference between a value creation and a valuation. Now both the terms have got value, but ultimately you're seeing that the way the time zones and the activities that are involved in each one of them, the impact which is happening is different. For me, value creation is your input. Valuation is the output. And like any mathematical person would say, you have to focus on the inputs to control the output. So the organizations who forget this, who start looking at only the valuation game, whose end goal is only valuation all the time, and who start looking at valuation itself as the input and, to get that output, are the ones who are struggling. Why? Because they don't have a strong business foundation. This next slide. Okay, this next slide is a screenshot from 𝗘𝗱𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 tweet. And it's a real screenshot, so I took it from, from his Twitter handle. And on the right is the response from Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a screenshot of that, but she's talking about how it's like virtual reality. Valuations is like virtual reality. Now you see it, now you don't. And they just don't stack up in real life. And I think a lot of us know about what is happening with this organization right now. One of the reasons, I'm not saying this is the only reason, but one of the reasons is that they have failed to create sustainable long-term value. Sustainable long-term value, not just for their customers, but also for their employees and other stakeholders. In fact, it's very interesting that when people talk about high valuation, when we go out looking for funding, we're always hoping that we get the highest valuation possible. But the reality is, in some cases, is that when you are actually overvalued, when your valuation is unrealistic, your performance is also under fire. Even though you may be, meeting all your milestones, which is ahead of everybody else in the same space, you will still be running short because your valuation has been so high. So in many cases, higher valuation actually becomes deterrent to the organization. And if you see this organization over here, if you check out the experience of the employees in this organization, you will see the net is full of the toxic environment of employment in the organization. For me, this is a clear indication that you may have a higher valuation, but you failed to create that value for your employees also, not just for your customers. And that's one of the reasons that the organization is now under so much of fire and heat. Oops, what did I do? Okay. So what does it mean to us? What does it mean to you, me, all of us over here? What does it mean for us today? It's all nice, theoretically, 𝗘𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, valuation seems dicey, value creation is there, but what does it mean? What can we do about that for us? So for us, what it means here is right now, focus on creating that value creation by building a solid, sustainable business. And as a business coach, this is what I do. This is what I do for startups, early stage organization, or even second generation family-led 60, 70-year-old organization. We focus on how do we create that very solid fundamentals. And then again, how do we do that? Let's talk about that. I hate talking about only gyan and not knowing how do I apply that gyan in my business. So this is the simplest depiction that I could put together on how do we create those values. 3 circles that you focus on. Create a value for your customers, create a value for your employees, and the third one is to create a value for yourself as a business owner. Okay, so let's talk about what each one of them means here. Diksha's already told you I'm very passionate about the customer perspective, applying customer perspective in business. And this is one of my favorite quotes, 𝗘𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. So for me, I believe that every business starts and ends with its customers. You may have a great product, but if you don't have any customer who's buying it by paying you money, then you're still not in business, right? And you may be having lots of customers, and once they stop paying you, you are no more in business. So every business, the starting and the ending scene of every business is its customers. So this is where, as entrepreneurs, we've actually focused a lot around this. This is where we're looking at how do we create that value for your customers. Okay? So the first thing is, of course, to start with your offering, whether it's a product or a service. Simple enough as what problem is your product or your service solving for your customers? What need, what want of them are you serving through your product or your service? So look at your products, look at your service, and clearly identify the benefits and not the features of your product, the benefits for your customers. So this is where we talk about the product or the service strategy. You look at how you position that, that quality, that value of your product to your customers. So you may have a great product or a service, but if your customer is unable to see the value in that, you're again in soup. So it's not just good enough to have the product, which is great, but how do you actually position? I'm sure many of us today can talk about quite a few startups or quite a few products which are really very good, but nobody else knows about it. Okay, products or services which you were little hesitant to actually take on first, to spend some money, but after that you realize, hey, this is actually good. I had no idea that this was actually gave me this kind of a service or this kind of a product. So these are those companies who have not done a good job of positioning the value of their product to their customers. So customers may be unaware of the value that they're getting. So that's another piece. So not just product or service, but also how do you position that. The next one is you focus on your go-to-market strategies. How do you reach your customers? What channels are you going to reach them? Who are your customer segments? Who is the customer profile that you are targeting? How are you going to reach them? What channels are you going to reach them? Is it going to be digital? Is it going to be offline? Is it going to be a physical store? Is it going to be through channel distribution? What geographies are you going to look at? If you are a startup, are you going to look at a smaller geography for now? Or if an established organization, would you want to look at moving away from the comfort zone of an established geography? These are all questions that you have to ask, right? After you've looked at your product and your go-to-market strategy, oh, by the way, in between this, you have to look at your customer segments that you're catering to. You cannot cater to every customer. So if anybody is thinking, hey, my product is really good, everybody will need it. In that case, you have to be ready to be putting in all your resources into this huge, big black box, which is the total market. And it will just suck away all your resources because it's so huge. So focus on a single customer segment initially. Take your learnings from that, and then move on to the next customer segments. Because there is always going to be a learning curve. So if you see now all of these, when we are building all of these, this is where I tell customers or my business mentees, is to look at every function of your organization under the lens of the customer's perspective. See how your customer is going to view your product, your marketing, your sales, your packaging, your delivery. So go back, look at everything, look at your audit all of your business functions from the perspective of the customers, and you will be surprised on how much of improvement opportunities that you will get. It sounds theoretically very simple, but when we start working, people are actually surprised that you have practices and processes which are very convenient for you as an organization, but it's inconvenient for the customers. And lately, especially if you're in a market which is very, very crowded, you will see that new entrants are coming in by identifying that one area which is not very convenient to the customer, and creating their differentiation using just that one segment, that one area which we have not thought. We've accepted that ye to hota hi hai. This happens. This is what happens in my industry. Okay, a classic example if for people who are from Bangalore, if you see this Lalita Jewelers, many years ago, Lalita Jewelers came into the market when it was already overcrowded. We've had the Bhimas and the Joy or Lucas. We have all the biggies over here. And suddenly, this Lalita Jewelers came out. And what was their position? Their position was zero wastage on gold. And this wastage on gold is something which it is acceptable to us as consumers, right? We know that when we are buying gold, there will be some wastage. So we have accepted that. We may negotiate, we may haggle, but we know it's a part of it. And here was this person who's come in and completely taken over the market and saying zero wastage. Why should a customer pay for the wastage? I will pay for the wastage. You are not paying for it, right? And today, when I was driving here to the venue, I noticed a new ad which says the lowest wastage. So he's also, over the years, got down to the realistic. But he was successful on making a space for himself by identifying a small challenge, a inconvenience for the customer by looking at the entire industry from the customer's perspective, right? So for me, and if you see all of us, this is where we spend most of our time in the business, right? Trying to crack this portion of it. Trying to crack the product, the service, how are we going to offer this to the customers, which customers, which markets, which channels, what pricing. That's another whole ball game, right? So all of these, if you look at it, this is where we spend most of our time in our business. And that is why, for me, customers is the first space that you look at. And if you're able to do this, if you are able to crack even 50% of all the variables that are there within the customer value creation, what you're doing is that you are creating valuation for your organization itself. Because this is the time when investors will start seeing that you've got paying customers who really value what you are offering, right? And that means they love the pie that you have baked. And they are ready to pay a higher valuation for a smaller slice of that pie. So this, if you've cracked it, you can leave the room and go. I've done this. I don't need to know anything else. Okay, so the next one is, I've already spoken about this, is about employees. This is a very old statement, quote, most valuable asset of an organization is its employees. And somebody also said, and this asset of mine leaves my organization every evening and comes back every morning, right? But how do you create employee loyalty in today's world? In today's world where the average tenure of employees is just between 1 to 3 years. How do you actually create that? And unlike your, the customer loyalty, which is so easily visible, how does employee loyalty actually create a value for your organization? So the first thing I would like to tell is, for those of you who are thinking, if I give them the salaries, good salaries, I've created value. Unfortunately, that's not the truth. While monetary reasons is, of course, one of the main concerns of an employee, it's not the only one. And there will always be somebody who's ready to pay your employees a higher salary. So if you're only competing on salary, then my friends, you're in trouble. Just like when you, for the customer segment, if you're only competing on pricing, you're in trouble. Because there will always be somebody who is ready to take lesser, slash the prices, go give you higher discounts. So let's look at what is then, if it's not salary, then what else? There are so many different criteria. Okay, this is actually a screenshot from a real organization. And what have they done? They have created work happiness. They have created career happiness. They have looked at the benefits that the organization can offer their employees, which is beyond monetary compensation. And they're looking at building company culture. Here I would like to tell you about an organization which I'm coaching, a 60-year-old organization, second gen. 150 crore organization, having about 26 branches across the country, and about a couple of other branches across the globe. We have a monthly review meeting, a sales review meeting at the beginning of every month. We've just finished that last week. Now, I was surprised when the CEO introduced a new slide in the monthly review meeting. It was about your HRMS. Have you completed all the approvals for leave? So I was surprised. This is a sales review meeting, and why are we having an HRMS screen? And then he tells me that, Neetu, the reason is because every year, every month, salaries are actually dispensed at the beginning of on the first of the morning. But the last 2 months, it's been delayed. We're giving it on the first evening. And the reason is because the sales leaders have not gone and approved the leave, so leave calculation is taking some time, because of which and we do not want that to happen. Our employees are expecting their salaries on the first of the month in the morning, and we need to ensure that happens. So now it's part of the sales review that have you finished your HRMS approvals on leave. This for me is the culture that the organization has built. And going back to the earlier screenshot of the Twitter, that organization I told you, if you see that, if you go and look at on Google, it's full of stories of their toxic environment. Today morning, I was reading about how many organizations have laid off their employees and laid off over a Google Meet. Again, an example of failing to create value for that organization. In fact, when I saw some of the names, I made a pledge to myself, I'm not going to, buy anything from those organizations, because this is the way they're treating their employees. It shows the inhumanity of the organization. And then the last one is for you as a business owner. If you are not earning a profit in your organization, and what I mean by profit is after you've paid off all your costs, and you've paid off all your interests, and you've paid off all your loans, interests, taxation, and yes, after you have also paid off a salary for yourself. That amount which is left is your profit. And if you are in the business and you're not focusing on that profitability right from the very beginning, you are going to hit a brick wall. And when I say profit, I am not looking at the average overall profit of the organization. This is where organizations are quite surprised when we break down their business accounts, their balance sheet, their P&L, and look at every line item in their revenue. Every product, what is the profitability? Every geography, what is their product profitability? Every LOB, line of business, what is their profitability? When you look at all of these, you will realize which of these segments, even customer segments, right? Which of these segments are actually leaking your profit? So one division may be showing that they have overachieved their targets by 4.5 crores, but there is another 3 divisions which are not meeting those, and they are actually under loss. And so that 4.5 crores is actually being absorbed by these branches or LOBs which are not making that money. It could even be a product also, right? So when you break down your profit and not just look at it at the end of the year when you're doing your P&L account, a balance sheet, it's already too late to make any changes. Month on month, look at your profitability and make course corrections. So that's for me is very, very important. Only organizations who are focused on profit are the ones who will actually be able to do anything about the value creation that they have done. So focus on your profitability. That's where it comes to you, including the fact that pay salaries for yourselves. It's very, very important. And not just bare minimum, aim at paying salaries which is comfortable for you. So, what am I doing? Okay, so with that, if you see at the bottom of it, the bottom line here for you is once you've got all of these circles, when you start working on all of these circles, the middle part, the common area is where your business success lies. And with business success, the valuation also increases. So it's not a chicken egg problem. It's very, very clear. Focus on value creation and valuation happens. Not everybody who has a valuation may have created a value, but everybody who creates that value for all their stakeholders will definitely build a business that endures, whether it is the VUCA world, whether it is the funding winter, all of this can be endured by a business that matters. So your number one priority at any time of your business should be to create that value. And with this, I would like to end with a quote. It's adapted from Robin Sharma. I would like to, the change that I've made is around that business success is a function of value creation. So you focus on your variable, you focus on the things which you can control, and you can control creating those values. And the more value that you create, the more the valuation of your organization itself. So with that, I'd like to end. You're welcome to reach out to me. That's my email ID. Or you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn as Neetu V Bansal. Thank you so much. I can take any questions if you have now.
Any questions? I can pass around the mic if anyone raises their hand quickly.
Thanks for the session and the very good, insightful take through. So my question is, how much of this is psychological? Because when I talk about value creation and valuation, I have been in this space where we were about to raise our funding, but for me it was more psychological. Everyone is doing it. Let me do it. I was not even in the need of it, but thankfully I got that understanding at the right point of time that for me the focus should be value creation right now, and funding should be only a function of need of funds whenever you need it. But don't you think this psychological thing is, affecting a lot of people like me who are young and want to start up? So how do we go about it? How do we tackle that? And that's the important thing.
Thank you for that question. What's your name?
Manal.
Manal. Thank you for the question, Manal, right? And what you're saying is definitely what's happening out there, right? And the simplest answer for that is, again, focus on the value creation. Valuation ho jayega. And especially when you don't need it, it's like, when you're learning how to drive a car, you have to focus on the gears, on the accelerators. You don't have to focus that I'm going to reach 150 kilometers in 1 minute and so many. You need to focus on that, right? Just like the way you're saying, there are organizations, youngsters who get impacted, who get impressed by looking at those 30 startups who are going to get 100 crores, right? There are others who are also getting discouraged when they're hearing about the organizations who have not. And the reality is, for everybody in this room, right, a very small factor, maybe just 1 or 2 of us will actually get funded. Right? So we are always looking at those unicorns which are, in India is 130, 50. But what about the, do you know the number of organizations that are registered in the country every year, every month? There is absolutely no ratio comparison between the two of them. So, and the irony here, Manal, is that when you go in for a valuation, what do you think the investors are looking at? They are looking at how strong business foundations have you set up. Do you have paying customers? Are the customers ready to pay you a value which is higher than the cost of your product, production and delivery, right? What are your financial behaviors within the organization? Who are the people in your team? And all of these, aren't they a part of your value creation itself?
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, but the narrative around us everywhere, if you see, even if we talk about startups who are not funded and doing good, we have very few examples of Zerodha and probably Zoho.
Absolutely.
But when I talk about unicorns who are funded, you can take 150 names, as I said. So that entire narrative is what I think taking is making this difference visible. Otherwise, they are both the sides of the same coin, but
It is,
look
it
so
is.
different at this point of time because of the entire ecosystem and the narrative around us. So
I get it. So it's like this again, you know, you have the summit and you have to walk, you want to reach towards the summit, but when you're walking towards the summit or when you're driving towards the summit, if you keep looking only up and don't look at the road ahead, you are going to meet with an accident. So I think that's there. It is challenging, it's not easy, and that's why this is happening, but there are equally, like you said, enough of people who are doing it without that funding, and they're focusing on building that strong businesses for themselves. Okay, anybody else?
Hi, this is Padma.
Yeah.
We have seen that you have been telling first create value for the customer, then employees, then I'm going in this way because then the owner. Because even before, I'm at the beginning actually, so I'm investing my own funds. And I'm not at there where I take my salary or I can give good salaries to my employees kind of thing, right? So it's still a journey that still I have to reach where I can provide value to employees and myself. So what is the time when you say that, yeah, this is the time, yeah, you invest till now, till some time, and this is when you have to look for employee valuation and your valuation, value rather, sorry, creation of value or taking salary or the things. And yeah, otherwise you quit. Your
Okay.
take.
Okay, that's a good, interesting question. So the first thing is when we are looking at the customer value creation, right? Without that, you don't have a business, right? So that's the first step. The employee value creation, and I truly believe in this, right? If your employees are not happy with you, they're not going to be happy with the customers. They're not going to give a good, happy customer experience. Not for long. If they're doing it for now, not for long, right? And if you as an entrepreneur are struggling to survive monetarily, right? Where will you have the energy to focus on creating that value for somebody else, be it your employees or be it for your customers? How long can you sustain that? Okay, I've made that mistake as a tech startup earlier. We did not take salaries, even when there was extra money, thinking that let's keep that money aside for contingencies. If we take off the salaries today, what will happen tomorrow? Something is needed. If we have a new project and we suddenly need to, we need an influx of money, right? And our auditor actually came and asked us, people are not taking salary for the past 2-3 years. Are you running a legitimate business, right? And I also realized, though that we did not need that money all the time, we were actually, we were actually taking away money from our savings. And somewhere it was impacting us, right? And the reality is that when the pandemic hit, and when our customers said, we were in the martech business, the customer said we will not be doing any marketing activity for the next 1 year. Okay, my co-founders decided to go back to their jobs because we couldn't manage another 1 year of having no salaries, right? So why wait till you reach that stage, right? Even if you're able to take salaries for the minimal, whatever is the lowest paying salary that you're giving to an employee, start taking that for yourself. Reach the level where you are paying yourself on a good enough salary which isn't comfortable. So there's no time zone. There's no like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. It's when you reach each of these stages. Some organizations will reach that within 2-3 months. I know some very smart youngsters who've reached that, within the first 2-3 months, and I know some organizations who are 25 years old and who are still struggling to make that financial independence for themselves also. So it's a stage it's a place in time rather than a time specifically. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Either I've been very, very clear, so I mean everybody is knows exactly, or I've just said something which you do not align to. Which one is it? Okay, thank you so much again for giving me this opportunity. Wonderful to meet up with all of you all today. Thanks. Bye-bye.